All right, leveling up to level 2, long description. So the long description, I'm going to show how to do it in Canvas. And the first image I have is kind of a math graphic. Let me enlarge it, it looks really small. So I'm in the Canvas page, and this graphic has a lot going on. So the first question, again, should be, what is it you want your student to see? And the student is thinking, what is it they want me to know from the image? That's what the student that has a screen reader is trying to figure out. So if all you're trying to show is just maybe just a couple things just in terms of one car is farther away from the other one, I'm not sure what other little thing you could show from this image, but that's what you would put in the description. The description does not need to be every single detail that you see. It's the details and the description of it. You could do a general description, and then the details need to be in what they need from it. For, is it a problem in class? Is it content they need to know, pieces of it later? What parts do they need to know? And so this one actually gives the entire description, and the description they give for it is bulleted, so that's another option. Two diagrams show vectors on a number line. Diagram A shows a number line that goes from 0, the start, to 6, the finish. So it gives a very good, precise beginning to end. A vector arrow goes from 0 to 4 and is labeled 4 kilometers. So another thing they mentioned in guidelines is to write out kilometers, don't abbreviate, because the reader will need to actually read the words. In terms of how we're going to approach these when it's math symbols, I'll talk about that in a moment, but write out all abbreviations. That part needs to be written out. Another vector arrow goes from 4 to 6 in the same direction and labeled to, so you can see they're talking about diagram A, because that's labeled specifically A, and diagram B. And so if you were doing a comparison, A is bigger than B or anything like that, you'd put that in there as well. So let's go ahead and use this description. Now this one, putting it on alt text would not necessarily be appropriate. It is very long, so we need to do something different here. So the options do remain that you can put something in alt text, like some kind of image title. So cars and vectors, whatever you want to title it. But remember the thing I said that one of the students had said they like in one of the videos I saw was photo shows cars and directional vectors or directional arrows or something. Just some kind of title. So that is all. Something has to go in alt text. The screen reader has to be able to tell them what is there. Now, in terms of the description, I'm not going to put this entire description in the alt text. It's too big. So I need to say where the description is. So here's option 1. Option 1 could be, you say, description summary below. And so it's connecting this text to this image, even though on the page they're technically not connected at all. Now, if you're working with HTML, there's all kinds of other things that you can actually help it kind of connect. There was a lot of things I didn't quite understand because I'm not a web designer. So I'm kind of steering clear of that. I'm working with the Canvas pages because that's mainly what we work with. But that is a way to connect what they're seeing immediately afterwards. When the screen reader goes straight to this text, they'll go, oh, that has to do with the image. And so then if you then have the text start, 2 diagrams show vectors on a number line, and then it discusses the 2 diagrams. Now they did also point out on these long descriptions especially, now I didn't see a definite like standard way of doing this, but kind of making sure there's a start and an end to the description. So there's a couple of ways you can deal with the beginning and end. Now the beginning of the long description coming right after the alt text. I think you don't really need to say it's the beginning. If you're worried that the text they're going to read after this will kind of merge in and they won't know it's the end of the summary of the description, you could even type in something, end of description, or that was one of the things I read, whatever you want. Now, if you think that's going to be disruptive to other students that are looking at this somehow, then you can actually just take that end of description and make it the color white so it blends into the background, so it's there. The screen reader will read it, but none of your students will see it. And that's a technique we'll use with tables as well. Being able to get the same background color, whatever it is, to make words disappear, but that the screen reader reads them, I think that's a great technique. I thought it was so cool, like duh. And so this is a good description here. Now, that is option 1, making sure you connect it by putting the alt text in there and having, so they know where the description is, and then having the description right there. The other option is to do a link, and the link, you can make it a new page. So I've opened up a new page in Canvas, and I've titled it Two Cars and Directional Arrows Diagram. Now, the other thing I've seen though is to actually label this the text-only version. So on the title I put this text-only description. Now, ironically, sometimes you may want to actually put some math symbols, and those need to be read, and in that case you would have to actually use the math type tool. And so you don't have to say just text-only description, maybe you just say description, so they know what page they're on. Again, it's all about navigating and knowing where you are. So I just took that description that was under the image, and I now am going to save that in the page. And so I save it in the page, and I'm going to go back to my original one, and I'm going to put image description underneath the image, if I could find out where my cursor is. So all this other stuff, there's no formatting that's proper at all. We're just focusing on the images right now, so ignore my little source stuff. So image description, I can put here, I can highlight that, and then get my course page. So I want the hyperlink course, and then I'm going to go to pages, and it's the 2 cars. So there's the description, link that. So I have the link. And now in my alt text, I'm going to actually say photo shows cars and directional arrow, description, summary, link below. Just so they know it's a separate link. And then I'm going to save this. And what we now have is an image with the image description below it. Again, this is what do you want your sighted students to see, and what do you want, the sighted students need to see it, then you would keep all the text. If you don't, then you go ahead and put it in a link like this and an image description. Sighted students will still be able to see it, so they click on it, and then it comes up as this page that can be read. Now, the great thing about Canvas here, it works like our web pages. When they want to go back, they'll just hit up here on your navigation bar at the very top, back. Now, that's kind of a big deal because down here there's no next and previous arrows at the bottom like usual. Try to make it that your text pages would not have those. And the way you do that, I think, is make sure you don't stick them in modules and stuff like that. So this doesn't have any weird like previous and next buttons, so they will have to just go back. They're back to the image, they got the description, navigation, everything was connected very nicely, and everything is as it should be. The next one here, I wanted to just talk about in terms of not how to make it the alt text and everything. I already displayed that in the first image, but this image, like, what are we supposed to type? How much are we supposed to show? So this image is a graphic that has a lot of text information on it that they need to know. This is distributing information. What they don't need to know is about the cute little graphics that are on each column of all the text. They don't need to know the color of the text. They don't need to know all these little tiny details about the graphics. But one of the things that is done is where there's capital letters in the description. and it talks about the two columns separately. And this is actually one piece of a really big poster that I talk about in another video. And so this is actually a long description that's taken apart from something that's an even longer description. So in terms of what you need to say, again, it's what they need to know from the image. That's what goes into the description. And I could make this a link if I wanted to, but of course I would have to go in the alt text and make sure everything is as it should be in the alt text, and either this text on the bottom or if I were to make it a link. Oh, and the last thing before I forget is sometimes there's links to an outside source, a web page or something that has all this information. Maybe it already has a description. I think there's something, it's called URIs. I'm not very familiar with those yet. But the more I read up on those about linking outside, I would kind of tread lightly with that, because if you're linking them outside and you keep referencing something outside, unless it's very much connected to the image, be very careful about referencing things outside. So yeah, that's it.